All right. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Go ahead and get started here. About 2 minutes late. Thank you all for attending. Glad to see that that you guys are drinking some of the coffee and snacks. I appreciate that. We like having it out. So if you don't drink it, then it goes to waste. Love seeing that. But and second, it's a good problem to have. Needed more chairs. So love seeing everybody here. Appreciate you coming. Appreciate you making the time. We are hosting this obviously in person and virtual. And we have Jared Groves will be monitoring the virtual section, and as questions come up in there or here, we'll repeat them for everybody just so they can hear what the questions are as we get to those. And we'll have a few housekeeping items. We'll just go ahead and hold questions to the end. We can kind of answer each project as we go. We'll answer the projects at the end, and we can jump between them. That's not a problem. And I'll have a few brief highlights after we get through all the project items. Just a couple quick items I want to go over just to make sure we're all on the same page when it comes to a couple expectations. So with that, like I said, we'll have some housekeeping. I'm on the wrong tab here. There we go. As mentioned, everybody signed in out there. We also virtually, as we've mentioned, as Jared's mentioned, please just if you're on virtually, post your name and email address and what company you're with, just to verify, make sure we have everybody's emails, and we'll add you to the contact list after the meeting as well. So if this is the first time you've been here, welcome. We will add your data to our list and things, make sure that you're included in that as well. So thank you. For those in the office here, the bathrooms are out the door here to our right. If you need, you're more than welcome to. And feel free to get up if you need a little bit of air or grab a snack. So obviously our bulletin process, we've been doing this for about 3 years now. We've only made some minor tweaks, which is really good. I'm glad to see that it's been working pretty well for most people. But obviously we start with the advertisement, which is what we sent out last week. We posted that on our website. And obviously the reference information, I sent a link to my OneDrive. The one on the website is using Dropbox. So if you have troubles with one or the other, obviously let us know. But if you're having troubles with one, try the second one and see if that works for you. The introduction meeting or overview meeting is what we're doing here. So glad to see you. And then statement of qualifications. So this is our SOQs. This is the first submission. Those are due here in about 2 weeks on November 7th, 2024. I think the bulletin says 2:30 p.m. So just like a marriage, you get married on the uptick of the hour. So after that, we'll go through the evaluation of the SOQ. We'll shortlist from there. So depending on the project, some projects get 4 or 5 consultants. Some projects we've seen as many as 21 submit to. So we go through that, evaluate everybody, and then we come out with a list of typically 3 preferred consultants to submit a proposal. So then once we do that, we'll send out the invitation from the SOQs for the proposals. Generally, we anticipate 2 to 3 weeks on our end between your submission of the SOQ and our notice to you guys about being selected for a proposal. Proposals then will have another 2 weeks generally for development of those, submission back to us, and then we anticipate again about another 2 weeks on our end. The only thing I'll say is I usually negate the holiday time frame. So I think our SOQ evaluation falls over Thanksgiving. So I kind of negate that week. That's why I say 2 or 3. And then same thing for Christmas and New Year's. I try to make sure that nobody's expected, to do a bunch of work when they should be spending a little time with family. And then right now we're anticipating notices to proceed in February, by the end of February 25. It's weird to say 25 still, but I think that's very feasible this year. We're starting a bit earlier. ODOT's programmatic went a little earlier this year, so that helped us, get this out a little sooner. I know that ODOT's programmatic is a bit larger. I don't really want to compete with your attention with them, so a little selfish there, I know. So the statement of qualification submission, we require no more than 10 pages. You can have a cover letter. Does it require a cover letter? I forget. Okay, yeah, there we go. Some have more content, some don't. Then obviously we want to make sure in that cover letter you list the specific projects you are submitting for. So that way we know exactly which project to score you with, and then which group that scores you, will be able to find the correct SOQ. As I mentioned, some have more, some have less, so we try to keep this very organized in that way. You'll obviously reference your firm qualifications. You'll go over your project team and relevant experience of that team. How you decide to do that is your choice. And then you'll indicate which team members would be assigned to each project of interest. So, again, how you do that is your choice, but just make sure it's clear, hey, these sets of people are going with this job. These sets of people are going with that job. And then obviously include reference projects. This is one I tried to clarify a bit here. I think it's really good to submit 3 reference projects for each type of project that you're going for. I think our bulletin, says at least 3 reference projects, and I think its intent is really hoping that we can get 3 of each project type. So if you're submitting for sanitary and a signal project, obviously we would hope to see 3 sanitary and 3 signals, if you can, find the way to squeeze that in. I know 10 pages is both a lot of information and sometimes not a lot of information. So let's do our best to work on that and see what we can get in there. And then continuing off of that, then you have your references. You have your ODOT pre-qualification certifications. That is not included in the page count, so that's kind of extra. So you get an 11 plus number of pages. Don't sneak other content in. I'll watch all of you for that. No, but just the main content's the 10 pages, and then the pre-qualifications and the references, Tina?
Yep, just pre-qualifications.
Okay, just the pre-qualifications don't count against the 10-page limit. So, and then the subject line is spelled out as well here and also in the bulletin, and who to email specifically that to. So that way we can track everything. With that, let's get to what everybody's here for, and that's the project. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to pass these to essentially the project managers of each grouping. The first one, Thomas is going to present it, but he's also working with Ken. Oh, I'm sorry, and I did a terrible thing. I didn't introduce everyone. So I'm Brian Gable. I'm the Director of Capital Projects. With my team is Jared Groves. He's a civil engineer too. And Josh Miller, he's also a civil engineer too. And then Ken Richardson, who's our senior civil engineer. In the room as well is Michael Hendershot. He's the Director of Utilities. He has a longer title. I shortened it. And within his group is Thomas Fuqua. He's a civil engineer 1. And Dan, I think, is here somewhere. Dan Barr in the back is one of our engineering technicians. And then we also have Tina Waskowitz. She's the Deputy Director of Transportation Mobility. And then with her is J.M. Rayburn, who's Planner Deuce too. And Mark Dillsaber, who's our resident traffic signal specialist generally. Right, Mark?
Sure.
Okay. And then other staff, we have Josh Reinecke in the back. Josh is one of our development engineers. And is there anybody else staff-wise I missed? I don't think so. All right, excellent. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Thomas to introduce and start going through the first bulletin. Thank you.
Cool.
And the camera is on there, so try to stay.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. I guess I'll kick this off. So the first project is going to be the Deer Run Sanitary Sewer Improvements, Avery Road. project. Basically, some background for that is that in 2012, we partnered with EMH&T to produce a model of our sanitary sewer, as well as produce a study, because we noticed we were having some water and basement and sanitary sewer overflow events that were happening. With those recommendations that came from that study was this project. The initial recommendation is a 36-inch replacement, but we did want to check other options with that. So yeah, so moving forward with that, we are looking for a preliminary and detailed design. And that project is going to start at essentially Deer Run Elementary, and it's going to go all the way to Kilbannon, Court. So the biggest takeaways with this is going to be a coordination effort that's going to be with the city of Dublin and producing deliverables for that model. That's the biggest one. There's going to be a lot of coordination with utilities in the area, as well as the right-of-way submittals, negotiations, and acquisitions. Directly affected, there's roughly 30 parcels. So again, that is going to be routed through Muirfield, Village of Muirfield Golf Course. So that's another one. The project completion date for the preliminary engineering is January 9th, 2026, and the budget is $615. For the coordination aspect of the project, we pulled out the amount that's going to be for coordinating with EMH&T on it, so it might differ from what you've seen in the CIP. So that's where those odd dollars are at. This is going to be the scope, pretty much of where the recommendation is at currently. Again, we wanted to leave that open-ended, so if you do want to make changes, you're more than welcome to do so. That could be anywhere from a parallel sewer system or that upsize. Again, the recommendation was a 36, but it might not be the case. So yeah, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jared with project 2.
I'm supposed to be monitoring the chat right now, so nobody online say anything nasty. All right. So this is a similar project. We got a couple sanitary projects for the Bulletin this year. So the design of this project has two primary goals. Number one, this project will provide a sanitary relief sewer along Brand Road and Kaufman. That leg of this project was identified, I believe, in the same study as the previous one. And then the other leg of this project for design is to provide a sanitary service to areas 6A, 6B, 6C, and areas 21. I've got a graphic on the next slide to show those. Those were identified to provide service for our public water utility and sanitary sewer utility extensions and existing developed property policy. That is the full name. So this project will be providing the design for both of those. There's going to be a significant right-of-way portion for this project. Up to 39 parcels may be affected, obviously depending on the alignment and where the sanitary sewer actually ends up. And then as the designer in question that is selected will manage the putting together the right-of-way documents, legal descriptions, and exhibits, that kind of thing. And then the appraisal, negotiation, and the recording of the right-of-way documents. There's going to be a significant utility and City of Columbus coordination aspect for this project. So each submittal will be submitted to the City of Columbus for their review. And then as well, there's obviously the water plant and transmission main project that I'm sure we all know about. That'll be a major factor since geographically there's a lot of overlap for this project. The project will be complete January 9th, as you can see, and then our detailed design budget is about $2.5 million for design for this project. And like I said, this project will also extend to these areas which are currently unserved. Those are geographically nearby, and we figure we can two birds with one stone. So that will be part of it. That's pretty much it. Next is, it would seem, Josh. and he's coming over here. He's on his way. Everybody stand by. He's going to do a great job. All right. He's here now.
So project number 3 is the city's annual pedestrian maintenance program. It's a fairly straightforward program this year. We have 4 bridges that we're looking to maintain with the completion date for all 4 bridges of November 14th and a design budget of $22,000. The first bridge shown here is located in the previous Riviera Golf Course area. We've noted it as Riviera. It's located on an existing path northeast of Forenza Place. And really the only work that we're anticipating here is the replacement of the deck boards and replacement of the railing, bringing the railing up to city standards. In addition to that, because it is a steel beam bridge, we're expecting to paint the bridge per City of Columbus standards. Oh, what do I do? Bridges number 2 and 3 are kind of the combination. They're 2 bridges that are located off Avery Road, roughly across from St. Bridget. They're very close together. Bridge 2 runs parallel to right-of-way in the city's right-of-way, where Bridge 3 kind of serves as an offshoot into St. Bridget's green space parking lot area. Bridge number 2, there's some existing spalling on the concrete abutment that we'd like to look at getting repaired, in addition to replacement of the railings for bridge number 2. In addition to that, bridges number 2 and 3 are both to be painted to match existing, where the only work on bridge number 3 is for it to be painted. Finally, we have bridge number 4, which is located in the Hutchins open space, which is a city parkland space that's located off Sawmill, kind of towards the northeast of the city. You can get through to the location accessing it by Schroepser Circle. I did not say that right. Or you can go to north of, I believe it's Woodland Hill Drive. Bridge number 4 is a little bit unique in that it is in a very wet, moist environment. We've noticed that there is some rotting issues along the bridge that we would like to be assessed, to essentially figure out what needs done to maintain the bridge. And if you look very closely, it's hard to see, but in the bottom right corner of bridge number 4, you can see that part of the substructure is rotted away entirely. Project number 4 is for the signal maintenance for Emerald Parkway and Dublin Road. So the city is planning to go through and essentially bring all of the traffic signal infrastructure in this intersection up to current city standards. In addition to that, the city is looking to replace the 4 existing curb ramps. Right now, there's 4 diagonal curb ramps at each of the 4 corners, where the city would like to bring it up to current standards in addition to the goals of Envision Dublin. So we're essentially looking to replace the 4 curb ramps with 8 perpendicular ramps. In addition to that, we are trying to make this intersection more pedestrian and bikeway friendly. So we are looking at options to shorten the distance between corners, make it easier to traverse for pedestrians, provide pedestrian refuge spaces. Essentially, we're looking for options just to make this a safer, friendlier environment for pedestrians and bikers. The completion date for this project is October 7th with a budget of $75,000. I think that's it. Tina?
Thanks, Josh. I'm Tina Waskowitz, Division of Transportation and Mobility. So here we are on Transportation and Mobility projects. So the first one we're super excited about. We've had a really big effort with our planning division to update the way we look at transportation in the city. So if you haven't checked it out yet, Envision Dublin is the new updated community plan, and Chapter 7 is mobility and transportation focused. And there's a lot of really new and great ideas in there. The biggest being, what do we do without level of service? So if we start to focus on pedestrians and bicyclists as our top priority, what does that mean for our transportation network? How do we set up the space in the right of way to really accommodate those users first, and show that those are our most important folks in the right of way? So in order to be able to really execute having this paradigm shift, we also need to support that with how traffic studies are being done from the private side. So when we do our traffic impact studies, we take a look at what those impacts are on the network. We want to be able to figure out the best way to improve that network under this the new paradigm. So there are some references noted. We want this selected consultant to be able to provide a guidance document. So we are looking to you folks to help us create this policy using Envision Dublin, the NCHRP 1036. City of Columbus just went through a large effort on updating their TIS. So taking a look at what that process is and other communities that are really forward thinking in this area. So would love your help on that. Looking at a target date of next October to finish this one. Then our next project is another similar project in that we want a guide for the City of Dublin to use. So we would love for a consultant to help us out bridging some of these other gaps. So we have some new street typologies that are also included in that Chapter 7 of Envision Dublin that are generally to be used throughout the city. And then we have some really specialized areas where we anticipate a lot of growth, a lot of change, a lot of new development. And in those areas, we want to look really closely at what those sections look like and what we need to include for all of our users to be comfortable in that space. Some of these areas have a little bit of study behind them already and some suggestions for what those streets ought to look like, and some of them don't. So this will be a lot of coordination of how to get all of the street sections to look cohesive in the City of Dublin and yet have a unique feel in every district. And this one we're targeting December of next year for the final completion date. The third project, I think I'm going to have Mark Dilsaver, our transportation program manager, come up and tell you a little bit about this next one. Thanks, Mark.
All right, thanks, Tina. So project 3 is the detailed design for the installation of a pedestrian hybrid beacon at the location of Highland Croy Road and Tullymore Drive. We identified the location through various studies in the past and then drilled down on it a little bit more through the pedestrian crossing improvement study in 2023. And this location was identified in particular for the hybrid beacon, specifically because it met standards in our crosswalk guidelines. And we have higher speeds on Highland Croy Road. Glacier Ridge Metro Park is to the west, and Tullymore Drive on the east. And so Highland Croy Road, people tend to drive pretty fast there. So pedestrians don't really feel comfortable. So we're looking to put the signal on the north side of the intersection, which you can see in the graphic there, with some enhanced crosswalk pavement markings for that, just to bring more awareness to the location, which we're trying to do more often. Final plans for this are we're looking for at August 15th with any acquisition documentation, legal description, stuff like that, a month prior in June 15th of 2025. And that's that one. I'll give it to JM.
Good morning, everyone. So the final project for transportation mobility is our general task order project. This is for a consultant to respond to various requests that we may have staff. Currently, the projects that we're working on for the general task order include signal timing at intersection, as well as updating our bikeway facilities and policies. So that's an example of some of the projects that we'll be asked for a consultant to help us with. And then the contract is slated to expire in March of 2026. Thank you.
Thanks, JM. Couple of housekeeping items. So next steps, obviously, talk through the process. We're obviously having the meeting. The SOQs will be next. I'm not going to kind of go all the way back through this, but if there's any questions on the process, let us know. Refer back to the first thing. So do the first submission, and then those that are selected with the SOQs will be selected for submitting proposals, and you'll get an email notice from us that generally will go to the people that submitted the SOQ. So before we jump to questions, I do want to highlight a couple of quick things. Number one, just on utility coordination, especially for the first two engineering projects, and I think almost exclusively for them, try to detail out, what our expectations are in the bulletin. It's basically to develop, you not only collect all of the survey information that's out there, try to get all the plans and data from everybody, but also then to, develop basically a conflict chart, an Excel format where we're going through and figuring out who's where, who's in the way, who's not, what specific location, how deep, all of that, as we progress through the project. So we want to see that kind of early on, start that utility coordination early on, and then we want to start meeting with the utilities, especially after the first, after we get into the first stage plans, the 30% plans. Our expectation is that we're having monthly utility meetings with all of the utilities to try and start getting into their process. And we desire to set up a clear date, pretty early on in that with what our goal for their clear date is. Both of those sanitary projects, engineering project 1 and 2, those will also need a little bit in terms of utility coordination. There'll be some aspects of coordination also with the Columbus water main transmission main project. So that's their, where they're having the dual 48-inch transmission mains coming down Muirfield Drive. For the first project, it's really a crossing on Muirfield. The second project, much of their alignment follows our anticipated path of that relief sewer. That's another reason we were trying to coordinate these two together, so that we can kind of figure out where we're placing our line and where they're placing theirs, and make sure that we both reserve enough space in the city's right of way for all of our planned needs that we have out there. So that's the utility coordination end of things. We're definitely expecting the consultant to kind of help put that together. And then obviously the eventual goal is development of a utility note that goes with the bid set, defining who still remains to relocate and when they're going to be done, and that sort of effort. The second thing I want to make sure we're all level set on is the acquisition aspect. Just real briefly, for the city, and it depends on the size and scale of the project, but for most of our projects, we show, all the property details and easements within the plan profiles. And then the acquisitions themselves are done through legal exhibits and descriptions. That'll be the expectation of the consultants to develop those. And then, the consultants expected on the projects that define it, which is definitely engineering project 1 and 2, to have a appraiser and then also a negotiator within the design contract to go through, that acquisition process with the city. So kind of being a one-stop shop, kind of getting it all together as one. And then the final aspect of that too, once everything's negotiated and agreed, the consultant's expected to at least perform the initial draft of the council memo and ordinances for those. So we usually take those in, I'll call them pods. So, depending on, again, size of the job, we'll take 5 to 10 to council kind of at once. But once you do the first memo, the second, third memos are basically the same with just a few charts adjusted. So there's not too much extra effort there. And most ordinances are pretty same except for changing the names and such. So, and there are a couple related exhibits that'll go with that. So those are kind of the couple housekeeping items I noted. The Dublin Road project at Emerald, main goal that we're having there is, the roadway on Emerald is scheduled for resurfacing in 26. We're trying to have this project come in and be constructed the same year, try and make it all uniform to the traveling public as to what we're doing. That's why some of the schedule's a touch aggressive. I don't think it's too bad, but that's part of the reason why you see some of that there. So we've already resurfaced with ODOT in the north leg of Dublin Road. This year we've resurfaced the south leg of Dublin Road. And next year we're planning to seal the Scioto River deck, Emerald over Scioto River. So we're obviously hoping to do minimal impact to those areas if we can. We expect some, obviously, when we're shifting the crosswalks and such. So, but as a bit of insurance, we included the resurfacing in this job or in that job for the intersection, and then street maintenance will just plan to stop short. Hopefully we can coordinate those two together somehow, but we are expecting, some lead time items with that. There's a chance the signal poles may have to shift. So those are bigger lead time items and kind of make the project, one that needs to kind of be out on its own instead of being incorporated with our street maintenance program. So with that, like I said here, we can go ahead and shift to our question part. Before I jump in them, we do have contact information. I want to at least show that before anybody leaves. So here's the 3 engineering contacts. And then the 3 T&M contacts are also in here, as well as in the bulletin. So not necessarily new information here. But I'll put those back up at any time. If anybody needs them, feel free to let us know. So with that, we'll go ahead and do questions. Jerry will be monitoring the chat to go through questions, and then I'll be repeating questions as they come up from the crowd here. So anything? Yep, go ahead.
Just a clarification. Projects. I thought I heard one of them say that goal date. The other one was for the time. Is that the same for the projects?
So the completion dates as shown. Oh, yes. Thank you. The question in regards to the completion dates of the 2 sanitary projects. Project 1. Yes. Project 1, that's meant to not only be the preliminary work, but also through the full design. I was trying to recall, does Project 2 have any preliminary aspect to it?
Yeah,
has a little bit as well. Yeah, so that's the full, that completion date is the full construction bid set. So, the schedule should kind of look at that and kind of work through. So, most of the preliminaries kind of been done. Now it's kind of trying to take a more detailed look at it and truly get really what we're looking to do for alignment and actual approach to it. Is it replacement? Is it parallel? Is there an option that maybe we didn't think of or wasn't available at the time, the study was performed? So trying to just take a quick look at that since the study is 12 years old now. Just trying to make sure we're caught up there. So go ahead.
Those 2 dates though do not include the property acquisition necessarily.
It's so generally speaking, yes. The 2 dates, do they include property acquisition? Our intent is to try to have the acquisitions performed during that time period. So for us, historically, once we feel that the alignment is pretty well set, and we don't know, we don't anticipate adjustments to that, we'd like to move forward with the acquisition process. So sometimes that's not until we get to 60% plans. Some things we have a pretty well set alignment. The sanitary, once we're truly set where we need to be and we kind of have some of the vertical information figured out, I would think that we could probably start those a little before 60% in order to get into some of that, try to cut into some of that time. I do anticipate, for our timing sense, we usually, once the legal descriptions, exhibits are done, obviously appraiser will take, between a month and 3, depending on who you have. And, then negotiation starts with a good faith offer letter. Once an agreement's reached on acquisitions, on the city's end, it usually takes between, it usually takes about another 3 months to finish through all the approvals. So it is an ordinance. It requires 2 readings to council. So we submit our council packets about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the council dates. So again, ordinances then are 2 readings, and there's a 30-day waiting period before we're able to actually sign any of the documents, just due to the nature of the ordinances themselves. So those components, I think as long as the property's been signed, usually we're in pretty good shape to get moving forward while the paperwork's processing. If it starts running tight, obviously the other option that we try to do is have a right of entry written up where, it's very similar to the ODOT LPA right of entry where it says, the person agrees to everything, they're still discussing costs, but we're fine to go move forward with the project. So that at least gives us the rights to move forward with the job. And these dates are largely dictated by the coordination with the water treatment transmission mains. We're looking to have this information pretty close along or pretty far along so we can be moving along with them. And when they come out to construct, the transmission main, we can actually go ahead and have this plan together and try to coordinate some of our construction with them. So part of the goal would be to, when they're out here, either they or our contractor, depending on approach, are both doing our work and their work at the same time. So that's why some of these dates, are what they are in the bulletin. So you have something to add here? And Michael does. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Henderson. I'm the Director of Utilities and Stormwater Management with the City of Dublin. So I wanted to mention for the first 2 projects, so the Avery Road project, that is based on a modeling and study effort that EMH&T had done originally in 2012 and updated in 2019. So the requirements that the City of Columbus had at the time is different from what they have now. There's more scrutiny on if we're increasing discharge downstream into their system. So that is a big part of this project too, is working closely with the City of Columbus. For our service agreements with them, they review and ultimately approve whatever we're doing with our system, again, because they provide our water and wastewater treatment. But there's kind of this additional scrutiny that Columbus has given what their requirements were back then to what it is now. So as part of what the modeling and study had shown was there were options of with storage utilized and then without storage. So if you have storage, you're choking back the flow, less discharge downstream. So that is something that is part of these projects. We definitely want you to be, working with Dublin, but also coordinating with Columbus as far as that whole component, because there is additional scrutiny from the City of Columbus. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of that.
Do you expect any flow collection, data collection?
Yeah, so we, as a separate project, we're actually going to be having additional flow meters installed throughout the City of Dublin. So we will be able to utilize the flow data that we're getting from those flow meter devices that we can use as part of the project.
Okay. Any on the chat yet, Jared?
Yeah, we got a couple questions.
Okay.
The first question online is, what is the budget allocated for the 2 studies Tina mentioned?
Budget allocated for Tina's studies. Go ahead, Tina.
Sure, I'm gonna take the easy out and say it's in the bulletin so that I don't contradict myself. But if we've already got a preliminary budget for, I think, any of the projects, I think that's true for engineering and T&M, it'll be in that project description for each project. Perfect. So somewhere between 100 and 300 on those, the 2 specific studies that were asked about, but those budgets are included if we've got one. If we don't have a budget yet, there won't be one in the bulletin.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, Jared, another one?
Yes, one more online. The question is, can you confirm that ODOT pre-qualification is required for all projects or just some?
You want to go for it?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, so
Repeat the question.
the question is, thank you, is the ODOT pre-qualification required for every project in the bulletin? I'm going to answer that no. The transportation and mobility projects will be dependent on the project type. So on the detailed design project that Mark talked about, I think it is important for the consultant to have the ODOT pre-qualifications. On the studies, it's less important. You want to answer that for engineering?
Yeah, on engineering projects, 1, 2, and 4, I think we are definitely keeping ODOT pre-qualifications. I don't know that we have an issue with engineering project 3 if there's not a ODOT pre-quals for those, since that is more of a maintenance style project. So, and those plans are expected to be a bit simplified, obviously by the design budget. It's not exactly a huge fee, so it's meant to be kind of limited approach to it and get the details of what we're trying to do, out there so contractors can understand and kind of move on with it. So good questions. All right. Any other questions in the room? Yeah.
Tina, on project 2, for deliverables, it talks about 3D graphics and renderings and so forth. I just want to confirm that you're not thinking of like standard drawings or engineered typical sections for these various street types, right?
Correct. The question is about the level of detail that we want to see in this document for project 2, which is the street typologies. This is not intended to be a detailed design type of drawing. This is illustrative and to be able to use the guidance in this document to then go into a detailed design drawing. So we want this to be basically one step before your typical section in a construction drawing, if that makes sense.
Okay. Any others in the room? Okay. Did we have one online that I heard a little voice? Okay. Emily.
Questions for the project managers after today? Are we allowed to reach out to them?
Yes. So the question is, if we have further questions, are we allowed to reach out to the project manager? Yes. We'll treat this kind of as the same for like bid questions. So the project managers will take your questions in. If it's something that doesn't really adjust or change anything, we may answer directly. If it's very minor clarification or something we've covered already in this process. But anything new information, we would post out to everybody in an addendum to the RFP. So, that's our intent. We're not trying to give anybody a leg up at all. So please ask those questions. We love to know if there's something we're missing or something that's not clear. Go ahead. We'll get that posted, obviously, as promptly as we can.
We have them ask writing and email.
Yes, obviously, if you call, that's okay. Probably follow up with your question in an email so that way we can make sure it's addressed appropriately. Good question. Any others? Okay. Online quiet?
Everyone's quiet.
Online quiet. Okay. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and call the meeting adjourned. But we thank everybody for coming and attending. Staff will be around for a few minutes. If you want to just say hello and introduce yourself. But otherwise, the next step for us, we'll post the meeting recording to our website as well with RFP. So that way, anybody that maybe didn't attend can refer back to it and also hear the same Q&A and discussions that we had here. So, well, I thank you. I appreciate everybody for attending today.
Everyone.